Good morning, everyone who are watching from India. Evening to the ones who are joining us from the western part of the world. I'm your host, Mashood. We bring to you another detox where we look and focus at another disruptive idea which is working to make education accessible, equitable, and of more quality across the world. And when we talk about universalization of access and access to quality education, it's also important to look at uh, how the education is delivered to the most disadvantaged sections of the world. And we know that today there are many populations which are in conflict, which are displaced, and often have to kind of go through a lot of hardships. And because of any kind of crisis of refugees or any kind of conflict, education is one of the foremost casualties. Uh, and today we wanted to put in focus one organization and initiative which is making a wonderful impact on the education of such people who have been affected because of conflict or because of forced displacement as well. And this is the initiative of the Knowledge Enterprise at Arizona State University. And we'll also, as we know that because of the pandemic, there has been learning losses as well as there many schools have been closed, and technology has seen a major adoption. And how technology can be leveraged to make education accessible in the short term, and what needs to be done such that technology can be made more accessible and make education more accessible in the long term, not just for a few but for everyone. We're going to have a discussion on that today, and to discuss on that, we have a very special guest. She is the associate director at the Knowledge Enterprise at Arizona State University, uh, uh, and she's also been named as 2021's Wise Emerging Leader by the Qatar Foundation. She has been associated with the Harvard University as a scholar as well, and has a passion for working with for the education of the marginalized and the under-resourced communities as well. So it's absolutely wonderful for us to welcome Ms. Joanne Zimmerman to today's dtalks. Joanna, it's a pleasure having you here at the dtalks, and we're really looking forward to learning from your presentation.
Thank you so much, Mashood. Good morning to those of you who are in India. I am joining you from the past, as it is quite late Tuesday evening here in Arizona and Wednesday there. But I'm happy to speak with you and very grateful for the invitation from Dr. Gandhi, Mashood, who did a wonderful job coordinating this virtual session. So thanks again for having me. My name is Joanna Zimmerman, and I'm the Associate Director of Education for Humanity at Arizona State University. And I'll be giving a brief overview to start of how we use technology to facilitate access to higher education for refugees. And I know the work of Global Dream is mostly in the K-12 space and centers literacy. So this may be a little bit unlike other speakers you've had in the past due to the learner population and the focus being university level students. But I think within the themes of EdTech and equity, there will be a lot of overlap in lessons learned that can be exchanged. So with that foundation, I'll start with a little bit of background knowledge on ASU, or Arizona State University, the institution, talk about the initiative I work for, and then more than happy to share some reflections on EdTech and equity in schools more broadly via an open dialogue and the discussion that will follow. Slide, please. So at a glance, Arizona State University is a large research institution in the southwestern United States, and it offers more than 800 degree programs. In the fall of 2021, 135,000 students were enrolled in either one of ASU's campuses or as an ASU online student. About 39% of the total enrolled students are online students, and 61% of those are in person. Slide, please. We have 5 campuses across the Metro Phoenix area in Arizona, with a significant presence in other strategic locations around the country, like DC and Los Angeles. We're also exploring more permanent hub-type setups around the world, which would enable us to more easily conduct joint research with other institutions, connect with local industry, and serve communities of learners in a more deep and meaningful way. Next slide. We have a university-wide commitment to serving non-traditional students, including many coming back to school after a hiatus, students with demanding work or family schedules, or just those hoping to upskill for current or future employment. Many of our students are international, which makes us a truly global institution living up to the charter that you see on the screen, which says that ASU measures its success not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed. Next slide, please. And one question I get quite a lot is why ASU is doing this work in the humanitarian space. And the answer really goes back to our charter. Our president, Dr. Michael Crow, has a very strong desire to leverage our open scale learning tools and expertise to contribute in whatever way, large or small, that we can to alleviating the complex crisis that is the global refugee problem, where only 3% of refugees around the world have the opportunity to attend university. And you'll see there that there are 82.4 million people who are displaced worldwide, and I think a piece of my slide has disappeared, and then 35 million of those who are displaced are under the age of 18. So we're talking 35 million children displaced worldwide. And the UNHCR, which is the UN's refugee agency, has a target of increasing that 3%, which has access to tertiary education, a very small percentage. They want to increase that to 15% by the year 2030. And so if that's going to happen, it will take an invested group of practitioners, governments. We'll have to all think of new models, develop strong partnerships, and challenge existing institutions to operate in new ways that may be different than they have in the past. Next slide, please. And here's just a quote from President Crow. We are super open to, providing access to people anywhere, regardless of their background, regardless of socioeconomic status, hopefully regardless of language, as we in the future attempt to translate more of our content. And so we really just are experimenting with different models, but leveraging, whatever strategies, tools, and options that exist to make them more available. Next slide, please. And so that brings me to the initiative that I work on, which is called Education for Humanity. And Ed for Humanity started about 5 years ago and was born out of that same commitment to extend access to all learners everywhere. Next slide, please. And so as part of fulfilling our mission, we started to partner with NGOs and CBOs in refugee hosting countries to expand access to tertiary education opportunities. We partner with these local organizations because they are the ones with the intimate knowledge of the community, intimate knowledge of who the learners are and what their needs are. They are the experts on our facilitating our recruitment processes. They have the infrastructure that we utilize, like computer centers or learning centers, and we deliver all of our programming in a blended or connected learning modality, which means that most of the content is online, but we recognize the critical value of the cohort model. And so we also train facilitators on how to run in-person sessions alongside the individual study that learners will be doing with their online content. And so you'll see a list of our partners here, and some are missing as we kind of expand even more so during the past year and a half in light of the pandemic. But we started off by offering some of our open scale or MOOC style courses for kind of your typical first and second year undergraduate experience. But what we kept hearing from most of our partners is that more preparatory content was needed, and also that they really wanted English, because that can open a lot of doors for work opportunities in many locations around the globe. And also in the online gig economy, which is gaining it's gaining rapidly, more people trying to get in on places like Upwork, where you can find work online no matter where you're living at the moment. So after hearing that feedback, our priority really became offering English language training and also university preparation. And since then, we've reached about 3,600 students in around 13 countries. Next slide, please. So we're currently offering English programs, undergraduate courses, and a course that teaches the basics of how to be an online student, which is a mandatory course for the learners who will then be going on to take some of our undergraduate courses. And in that series of modules, which is called How to Be a Successful Online Learner, students learn study skills, time management, digital and information literacy skills, and how to communicate via email, and other soft skills that they might not have been able to gain due to being out of school for an extended period of time, or having little to no access to the internet as an integrated part of their schooling life. And our undergraduate courses that we offer are what can be considered that kind of first year course load, and we call that general studies at ASU, and those can be counted for credit at ASU, but also at other universities that take our transfer credit. Next slide, please. We've also been experimenting with ways to reach learners with the absolute least access to education. So that means, those in rural populations and those without the internet infrastructure. And so we've developed and delivered a college agribusiness course on a technology that was created by an ASU faculty member, which is the Solar Spell. And that stands for Solar Powered Educational Learning Library, which essentially acts as an offline hotspot without Wi-Fi. So when students are in range of the Solar Spell, they can connect to the device's network in the same way you would connect to a Wi-Fi network, access the learning materials, and download them onto their devices. So this can be a solution in areas where internet connectivity is poor or non-existent. And our pilot of this technology in Adjumani in Uganda was quite a success, with all parties eager to continue with more agribusiness courses in the future. So we're sort of thinking about building out a certificate program for that series. We've also piloted an online Masters of Applied Learning and Management with one of our partner organizations, which is called Kepler. And Kepler is an NGO that provides connected university education to refugees in Rwanda. The idea behind the Masters is that we believe we have the unique ability to touch the entire ecosystem of humanitarian education, which includes not only refugees themselves, but also the people who are developing and running programs that serve refugees and displaced people. So also upskilling the people who are, already working in the humanitarian space. Next slide, please. And for the future, we would love to, in addition to expanding our locations and offerings, we would love to help populations beyond displaced and refugee populations. So we would love to perhaps, work with organizations that are also reaching vulnerable populations, but, perhaps that don't necessarily have the conflict or crisis background. So we are hoping to help prepare and deliver online and solar powered or other unique offline educational opportunities, continue supporting program monitoring and evaluation efforts of some of our partners and beyond, and then also providing instructional design expertise for those developing programs in low resource environments. Next slide, please. So that was a very quick overview of what Ed for Humanity is, but I thank you for your time and attention, and I really look forward to the discussion and hearing some of your questions.
Thank you, Joanna, for taking us through the work which is being done at the Knowledge Enterprise and Arizona State University. It's truly remarkable how the mission and the values is, of course, it's really amazing, but also the technological innovations. For example, the solar spell initiative is something which we're really kind of wanting to learn more about as well, and our audience as well. So we had some questions. One, you talked about how like tertiary education is being made accessible to people who might have been victims of conflict or might have been displaced. So when it comes to higher education, often is seen as something which is which is often not very accessible for many, but you're making it accessible for a lot. So are there any particular prerequisites for people to join this program? We often see that people leave a lot of their previous degrees and certificates behind if they are displaced, or if they don't have time. So your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So we actually do serve many learners who have had their education disrupted, or they've actually gotten a bachelor's degree but don't have their proof, and that's a huge problem. We still work with those students. It becomes a little bit more challenging for those students to sort of put that degree that they earned to use given where they are, because there also are often work restrictions for learners who have been displaced. And so, if you have the status of refugee, in many locations, you don't get the right to work. And so that's something that we kind of have been thinking about, of even if we do provide an accredited degree for these learners, how can we provide additional skills that may also benefit them in the work in the informal economy? Or I alluded to places like Upwork, where that's a part of the gig economy. And so can they go online and can they get some jobs online where they can utilize some of the skills that they're learning in our courses? It's a very complex issue, and depending on where you are in the world, you're subject to rules from different ministries and you're subject to rules from different governments. And so that is something that we live in that world of complexity. And you bring up a really good point that we know if we provide an accredited degree to learners, that means something that's valuable, not only for ASU, but also if a student was to transfer into a local university, if that university accepts ASU credit, which most do, then that's also an option.
Right. And you also pointed out that the demand for English is very important, considering that it gives access to more social participation, economic participation in the in the global economy. Yeah, do you have learners for whom English is a second language, and for those who might not have for example, like the assumption being that many of the courses are in English, is there some way that that the initiative is bridging this English language requirement so that they can then move on to the accredited courses?
Yes, so that's sort of part of our on-ramp into whether it's our undergraduate courses or whether it's some of our partner undergraduate courses. So ASU is also in partnership with UNHCR, the co-lead of something called the Connected Learning in Crisis Consortium. So it's the CLCC for short. And the CLCC is a network of global partners, both NGOs and universities. And we all try to kind of work together. So whether, you know, you're studying with ASU or another partner in the CLCC, we try to share resources and try to create as much as possible where we can a pathway where, you know, students can plug in at various points along their journey. So you may have someone who's fluent in English, but you also may have someone who's not so fluent in English and needs really basic level English courses before they can even begin to enroll in an ASU course or one of the CLCC partners courses. And so we do provide English language training through a unit at ASU called Global Launch, and our courses are called Learn English Now, and they start at a very basic A1 level on the CEFR scale, which is the Common European Framework. And they go all the way up to English for Business and academic writing. And so we know that that's, unfortunately, we're limited by the fact that our courses are mostly in English at this point. And so, you know, while we would love to do more translation in the future, right now we do offer the ability to, you know, do that sort of bridging content that you've kind of alluded to there.
Right. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. Another question which all of us often deal with is, you know, the question of access and equity to education technology. And you know, it's really wonderful to learn about this Solar Spell initiative, where you're kind of giving access to places which digitally, or you know, might not have the access to internet, and making learning available to them. Would you like to share a bit more as to what this technology is, in which places, you know, what have been some of the successes and maybe some of the learnings from this particular initiative, and some context over which communities this project has been implemented in?
Yes, well, the Solar Spell team is a little bit of a different unit at ASU, but we work very closely with them. So they're in many places around the globe. I know they first started off in Micronesia. And so you can imagine a very remote location with very low infrastructure bandwidth capabilities. And has, you know, since then, they've kind of expanded, including a partnership with the Peace Corps. And so they're, you know, in many different places around the world, but we've worked with them in Uganda, and also we're about to partner with them for a project in Ethiopia. And the idea behind the Solar Spell is that you can basically, if you're within, you know, I think it's 60 feet of the device, then the device will transmit a signal to you that acts like a Wi-Fi signal, but it doesn't use Wi-Fi. And so you can then access the content of what's in the library, and it could be anything from health information, it can be, you know, courses, it can be books. Ethiopia has an idea to put their textbooks onto the Solar Spell for better access, and you can download that material onto a device. So in many of the cases where we have implemented Solar Spell, we also provide devices where they're not there. And so it could be on an iPad or a laptop. And then students get to use that information, you know, access the way you and I would access anything on our laptop. It's kind of like a smaller curated version of the internet. And so we, you know, do a lot of public health information sharing that way. A lot of education opportunities are, you know, distributed that way. And so it becomes just one other tool where the infrastructure is not there. it also is charged by sun. So it's solar powered. So it also doesn't use a lot of electricity, where that also can present a challenge.
Right. That's very interesting. And here the idea of using such technology for even school education is something uh, which uh, which I'm sure is also being explored and or could be explored. And I wanted your thoughts on this. That when we make such a technology accessible for children, and let's talk about now. I mean, of course, children are getting access to devices. uh, as soon as they're like 2 years old or something like that. But if we talk about making technology accessible from a younger age to populations who that traditionally have not had a lot of access to technology, what would you say would be some opportunities for uh, giving access to such technology to younger children, and what does that mean for the role of the teacher in such communities? Your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, it's a very complicated question because every education system sort of operates a little bit differently and also has their own advantages and disadvantages in terms of what they have access to, specifically regarding internet, the speed of the connectivity. And so your point is well taken that in many classrooms, in some of the higher income countries, uh, they are, in my experience, I was a kindergarten and first grade teacher. We had laptops in the classroom from kindergarten. And so that obviously is a very important kind of skill to have in the classroom in 2021, because digital literacy is at an all-time high and will only become more important. I think there's a U.S. Labor of Statistics statistic that says that, U.S. Department of Labor statistic that says that by 2020, which we're already past at this point, 77% of jobs were going to require digital skills. And so, there's no way to really get around it. Now, if you're in a situation where maybe you don't have, great access to technology, I think something like the solar spell is a very good compromise. I think, it allows you to simulate what it is to learn online in the absence of connectivity. And so I think it is something to be said, though, about any type of technology that you have in the classroom, is that it's only used if the teachers know how to use it and if the teachers buy into the idea that it adds value to the classroom. So I don't have to tell anyone in the audience here that it's not great to just, advise teachers to use more and more complicated technology, but not provide the training. And so I think the training piece for the teachers, and also information sharing and soliciting information from the teachers on, how it's adding value to their class, is very key if you're going to implement technology in the classroom.
Right. And if we also talk about like this new context which COVID has put us with respect to a lot of home learning, self-paced learning, synchronous, asynchronous learning, which is happening inside in many countries now, and many countries are actually now exploring this as kind of a long-term strategy, or long-term possibility to actually have think beyond the classroom-based learning. Now, of course, there's a lot of debate on that as well. But if we talk about this technology, something like the solar spell, and we had another gentleman who talked about this device called Rachel, which was like looking at like these offline kind of networks as well. So, I mean, the amazing thing with solar spell kind of initiatives is that it allows kind of some level of, I mean, it allows more ownership of children on information, and like they can come near the device even if the schools are closed, and then kind of download the data and then all that. But then there is that opportunity as well of being more independent. But then really, like, how do we make it more meaningful, and how what role does the teacher have in such a situation where children have much more control or ownership over the speed of learning and the information? So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think in short,
Again, it's a very complicated question though, but just wanted to understand your thoughts on that.
I think there's a couple of pieces to your question, and one is the idea of the uptick in remote learning that's happening. So whether it's a solar spell or whether it's, students on Zoom or something else, there's a lot more remote learning going on. And I think it's so interesting to me to see how this hyper focus on remote learning or alternative to classroom strategies have come about purely because of need. The need drives the innovation sometimes, and we've all seen that firsthand over the past 1.5 years. But what makes me smile is that those of us working in humanitarian contexts have been doing remote learning for a long time. So what you've just described has been happening in crisis contexts for many years. And so I'm glad that remote learning as an option is getting more attention, because until recently, not many people were of the opinion that you could achieve the same type of effective learning environments online or blended as you could in in-person classroom settings. So some of the things that I've learned by delivering remote learning over the past 5 years with my initiative in particular is that, you've also alluded to this in the question, is that remote learning doesn't have to mean siloed learning. We have so many ways to connect learners to educators and to each other. And I'm sure if someone in the audience has this list, I'm sure someone's done a catalog of all the potential tools that schools and teachers could leverage for this purpose. Feel free to share it in the chat if you have it. But I think, sharing resources and sharing strategies is, one option. I think that we also have to recognize, though, and this is me, maybe going a little bit ahead of ourselves here, that remote learning isn't equitable. And so we need to ideate around the varying levels of access that our students have to devices, internet, and for younger students, access to human guidance when they are learning at home or outside of the classroom. And I think solutions to this problem of equity would look different in different contexts. So it could look like a school providing devices to every student, or coordinating learning circles in a neighborhood where students come together to share resources, which could make it easier on parents who have to work or parents who don't have internet or a laptop for the child to use. But it could also look like flexible class schedules, flipped classrooms where students have the individual work time in the home, but also sometimes where they need to be logged into a synchronous or live classroom experience. And I've seen from my gender equity work that sometimes young women and girls in particular have additional responsibilities in the home and therefore have less time to focus on schoolwork. And so this is where, asynchronous experimentation can happen and be of value add as well. I think that it's all a learning curve. And so as much as we can share what's working and what's not with each other, I think that is just where we are right now. It's an adjustment. The last piece, though, that I would offer is that something we all know intellectually is that we cannot just copy and paste the face-to-face classroom experience to a remote learning environment. For one, human attention spans don't work the same way online as they do in person. And, because we're all new to this, I think there could be a little bit of apprehension on, what it means to try and fail at some of these new strategies. I think that it's really important that we're honest with ourselves about what is not working, because only then can we, try something else and get a better result. I've always said that a hallmark of a good teacher is someone who can read the room and adjust accordingly. So if those teachers who are listening, you wouldn't teach a lesson in a classroom and see that your students are unresponsive or see that their eyes are glazed over, and without going, okay, they're not getting it, they're not into it, so maybe I need to back up or try something else. So, why would you do that online? It's all about experimentation. It's all about taking what works and trying to package it in a way that could be transmitted to another environment, but also being flexible to change it up. Not sure if that answers the question or if that just raises many more questions, but
it answers some questions. It raises many more interesting questions as well. But I think the idea of having these disruptive talks is to say that yes, the problems are complex, and like you rightly pointed out, that it has to be a learning curve. But it's just that time is running out for a lot of our children, and like what ideas can kind of come in. So, and in this way, we feel like what you have been doing, Joanna, with your team and with Solar Spell, it is truly like a very innovative, disruptive form of a solution. And like you said, that in your area of work, this was the idea of using technology was being explored many years before the pandemic started. So it's truly wonderful to have your thoughts here. In conclusion, Joanna, you yourself have earlier been a teacher in the early grades, and we are trying in the dtalks. We are trying to also find ideas or kind of solutions with respect to foundational literacy and numeracy, which is still like not a reality for a large number of our children across the world. And you talked about technology being used in the classrooms from the very early grades as well, in your experiences. What would your assessment be of like how important will technology play a role in the foundational learning stage of children? And what like how much hope or how much investment needs to be made into technology in order to kind of help overcome this foundational literacy and numeracy crisis which the world is facing. I mean, the World Bank is saying that learning poverty is going to rise from 53 to 63% post the pandemic. So what hopes would you say technology can offer, and what needs to be done with respect to technology in literacy and numeracy?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think one sort of low-hanging fruit that is there is more investment in instructional design expertise. So rather than just having, activities that you do on a laptop or games that you play on a laptop that will that are meant to reinforce some of the classroom instruction, I think this is a really big opportunity for more attention being paid at the elementary and the primary and secondary level for instructional design. So universities have been doing this for a while now, and they do it well. But I think that, every school or every learning organization has a curriculum developer, or whatever you call it, a curriculum lead, some person that's focused on curriculum. And I think that it's equally important to put resources towards instructional design as well, especially now in this age where that is just the direction that we're going. I think this could mean hiring a new staff person or a team focused on this. but it could also start with a more homegrown approach, which, you know, I've said already a couple of times, having a few teachers spearhead an instructional design task force where they just start by collecting and cataloging and sharing out remote learning success or online experiences or games or lessons that have resonated in the classroom. Teachers are really good at knowing what works and what doesn't. So this could be a relatively low level effort item and a good place to start. And, you know, like I said, it is same with, you know, when I was teaching, we would have lesson study where we would go around, you know, for all the first grade teachers would go to one classroom and we would watch a teacher teach and we would watch the whole lesson plan and we would, you know, we wouldn't interact with the students, but we would just see what works and what doesn't and where the hangups were and where things needed to be clarified. And then we would work together to refine that lesson. And that type of collaborative experience amongst teachers, first of all, is really empowering for the teachers because it is them saying, this is how we want to deliver this content. And I think it can be a really easy thing to do if you kind of structure your day and your semester in that way. I've only worked in one school, but I have a sense that we can do more collaboration within schools to this effect. And so the same way you would do it with no technology, you know, why not incorporate that into technology-based classroom strategies as well?
Thank you so much, Joanna, for your thoughts on this very important topic, but also something where we were still trying to find answers. There are successes, and you share these wonderful experiences which you're doing at the Arizona University with respect to access to tertiary education. You've also shared some wonderful ideas about how technology is inevitably going to play an important role, even more so. But how can we kind of ensure that we also hold the values of collaboration and other aspects which are so very important for teachers in the coming time. So once again, Joanna, thank you so much for your time, for taking out time to come and share your ideas of change, to share your vision here on the Disruptive Talks. And we wish you the very best with your work, and hoping to have you sometime again in the future on this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.